Moana still holds a special place in my heart for being one of the biggest, most pleasant surprises for having no real narrative surprises. It has one of the most straightforward, recognizable plot structures in American cinema, but it is a testament to how tried and true heroes' journeys and coming of age adventures came to be so tried and true. I'd say it's up there with Mad Max Fury Road and Edge of Tomorrow as one of the most well structured narratives of the 2010s, and it reinvigorated my point of view on predictable plot points. Turns out, I realised in November 2016, that having seen a series of events play out similarly in other films does not automatically disqualify the newest iteration from making an emotional impression. Where other basically plotted films could feel like the creative team behind them were ticking story beats off of a checklist, Moana always felt like the interiority of the central character throughout her journey was the creative team's top priority. And more than that, it was of the utmost importance that by the film's end, the journey felt complete. Few major studio releases from the past 10 years have felt like they're proudly declaring no sequel required like Moana. Not that Moana has nowhere else to go. The film does conclude with her setting off on a new journey, but a self-actualization story as fulfilling as that runs the risk of any new adventure repeating the old one, or feeling incredibly small scale in comparison. For these reasons, I wasn't necessarily put off by the revelation that Moana 2 was originally meant to be the opening episodes of a TV series. If we had to have a sequel, it wouldn't be the worst thing if it was simply an episodic romp encountering 4 or 5 new locations, peoples, and creatures, heavily expanding the ocean-heavy world of Moana. A Moana's Odyssey, if you will. And it really feels like that's what we're in for as Moana sets off on her latest quest with a rookie Wayfinder team in tow, each with their own distinct character archetype. You can certainly feel the TV roots in this from the very beginning, but after our first side quest, taking down a sea beast disguised as an island, we fast-track to the climax. Either the decision to release Moana 2 as a film happened very early into production, or the TV show was going to be very typical of a 2020 streaming service production, where the pitch likely featured the phrase, "a movie cut into X episodes." Reverse engineered back into a film, I think the flaws with such a proposal are more evident than ever. Although there is the minor relief that I don't have to wait a week between every half hour to see the story continue to go nowhere, dragging its feet to a pre-planned climax that inevitably feels less impactful because the journey to get there felt so lacking in a sense of purpose. And an issue like this only feels more obvious being a sequel to Moana of all things, committed as that film was to making the hero's voyage as substantial as possible. I remember particularly getting to the ever-recognisable all is lost moment in that film and feeling that, as far as the runtime was concerned, it was much shorter and arrived more abruptly than the moment does in other adventure films, and yet emotionally it felt so true to the character herself, as the film had always focused on fully understanding her interiority. The feelings of loss and failure, as well as the specific way she pulls herself out of it, feel like absolutely the correct progression for her. Again, all the moments in the film are recognisable, but it never feels like it's being read off of the production to-do list. Which is why, after a journey mostly on the open ocean, only meeting a select few characters and creatures, when Moana completes her journey and returns home, you still feel the relief of an epic adventure of great magnitude coming to a satisfying end. By contrast, despite the fact that Moana claims to be setting off on a greater journey this time round, with no certainty of return, when the conclusion comes it somehow feels as though we barely left in the first place. And from the perspective of it being a sequel, it's hard to see how the story is really developed from where we concluded in the first film. Also very typical of streaming service shows. Even the endlessly teased out conclusion proves to be a tease for the next season. At the very least, Disney's decision to have Moana remain a cinematic venture appears to be paying off in a literal sense, so the near certainty of Moana 3 will at least enter production with the intention of being a film from the start. The only question is, will they recognise the need for a more eventful and well-rounded narrative similar to the first film, or will 2's success encourage them to continue to inject so little of substance into this film while teasing out bigger things to come in Moana 4, and 5, and 6, and 7, and 8, and 9, and 10, and 11, and 12.